You're listening to a Sculpted Life podcast brought to you by Pal Tiya International. Interviews with creatives around the globe. Our sculpting material, Pal Tiya Premium, is the all-weather sculpting material. Add water, knead like dough, sculpt it. Make art for your garden. No firing, no molds, no kidding.
I would call myself an artisan.
Ooh.
An artist because I work in a few different mediums and it's my passion. And I trained and worked in the graphic arts field as a commercial artist for 25 years.
Okay.
That's my background. And then I became a florist.
Ooh.
So I'm a floral artist. So that's where my passions are. But then I had an accident. I had to give away the floristry because it's a lot of drudge work, lifting heavy buckets and that. So I used to teach art to children, quite a lot of different art forms, photography. We used to do a newspaper with the children every week, just hand cut different stories from the community, and that was in Currumbin Valley in Queensland. And also we used to do some clay work at school, and I'd take them off to the local kilns and have them fired. Then I discovered Pal Tiya. I was researching for a sculptural material that I could use outside because I had an urge to make planters that that could hold, that were impervious to water, but I didn't want to use traditional clay. And I find Pal Tiya much better to work with because it doesn't shatter or crack, and it's so strong. Impervious to the elements, that's what it is.
Yep, it definitely is that. And I just to give listeners a little interesting snippet was just I found Debra's beautiful little, I think you tagged us in a picture on Facebook or something, and it was the most sweetest little hobbit house and a little tree with a little swing on it, and she'd put I think it was it moss or like you'd put leaves and things all around it in moss, and it just took my breath away. It was just so sweet, and I almost I remember when I first saw it and I showed it to the rest of the crew, and we were all like, you just want to kind of crawl inside and live there. It was just so adorable.
The children always say to me, but does the door open? Does the door open? And I say, no, it doesn't. I've got to make a few with a few little opening doors on them.
Yeah. Or make them, pull the tinfoil out once it's done and put some fairy lights in or something. That would look...
Yes, they all have fairy lights on them.
Do they? Oh, wow.
So you can gaze through the doors and through the windows and see all the lights inside.
Oh, I love it. Can you imagine just walking past a garden and seeing that? You'd just want to steal it.
Yes.
I would.
Yeah.
I would want to steal it.
Yeah.
So that's how I first found out that you were using it, because we've, a lot of people are starting to, because it's getting out there a bit more, a lot of people are starting to use the hashtag Pal Tiya Premium and Pal Tiya, and so I've been finding all kinds of things in Instagram and all over the web. So it's been really interesting seeing what people are coming up with and how people continue to push the boundaries of the product, which we're loving, because a lot of the things we haven't done ourselves, and so people are almost experimenting for us, and we're kind of going, oh, so you can do that with it. Okay, well, that's another thing that you can do with it. So that's great. And so take me back, Debra, to like I know you don't. A lady never reveals her age, but how old were you when you began creating things?
I was about 7 years old, and in my local town in New Zealand, I won a pavement chalk painting competition. We had a square of pavement, and you painted it. So I was about 7, and then we used to have royal shows every year where the country comes to the city, although the place I grew up in could be hardly called a city. And we used to make little tiny gardens with flowers, soil, and a few rocks on a plate, like just on a flat saucer plate. Yeah. And it was a really lovely thing for kids to do then. They'd last about 3 days and the flowers would die, but, it was just getting your little creation into the show and everyone looking at it. That was pretty good. I never won anything, but my sisters did in that little royal show.
Cute.
And also my background is my father's an inventor.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah. Ooh. And he's invented over 200 products, and a lot of those he's put on the market. So he's a self-made man, very creative, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Wow. And my mum was a creative homemaker. There's 7 of us in our family. And,
wow.
Yeah. And she was always creating things, sewing with flair, and she used to paint a little bit. And she was a fantastic creative person.
So you've always kind of been around it.
Yes, yeah. My dad's 93 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's still inventing.
Oh, really?
Yes, and much to our... he's actually formed a company with some other people in WA, which is Western Australia, and they found out about him because he's quite a well-known person, and they locked in with him, and they have formed this company, and they're just putting his new inventions on the market. He's still going. I don't think a creative mind ever stops.
I don't think it does. I think it's always with you, and in some form or another, even if you can't. I know a lot of people who are older and they were still creative, even though their bodies weren't able to do what they did before. They turned their hand to other things because it just kind of it's something that needs to be expressed through you, I guess, as a you're that portal for that particular creativity. So yeah. And so you talk about your family being creative and you being creative. What kinds of things did you? So obviously you've kept creating this whole time. What kinds of things did you start to do after your first kind of foray into making the little soil plates?
Well, I went to art school. From there, I went to art school, but I went to commercial art school because I thought I could make a living out of doing art. So that's what I did for 25 years. I worked as a graphic artist. I loved it. And the bonus at the end of the week was I got paid for it. It was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm getting paid for doing this work. And I used to do all kinds of things, magazines, layout of magazines. This is before computers came in. Layout of magazines, designing pages, illustrations for books, just about everything. TV ads, doing the little storyboards for television and that. Now it's all it's a lot of it's computerized. A lot of drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of drawing. I've painted on fabrics, paper, glass. Made a range of glass things. I love refurbishing old bits of furniture, and I use a lot of recycled, and I upcycle things in my little miniatures that I make. I've got a little Etsy shop, and I make miniature furniture, swings, and all kinds of tiny things for fairy gardens and miniature gardens, bonsai.
Oh, you'll have to share that Etsy page with us so I can link it in the show notes, so that people can go and have a look at what you do, because your work is beautiful.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm into making also world dolls, and they're some of them are from forests around the world, and they're all different skin colours, and they all have different clothes on. I don't know if you've seen them. They're also in my little Etsy shop.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can't wait to see them.
Yeah.
And who buys your stuff? Is it so? I'm never sure about Etsy. Can you send stuff anywhere in the world, or is it just in Australia?
And anywhere in the world. Most of my buyers are actually American.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah. But I obviously, because my hobbit houses are made from natural materials, like and bits of wood and that, I can't post them overseas. So I can post around Australia. Anything that's, got moss and things like that in that. But a lot of people, because the Pal Tiya, the colour of it is the perfect tree colour. It just happened to be that, when people see the little trees that I create, they are sure that they are real. I assure them that they're not real, and they're actually made of your product.
Yeah.
Look, it just happened to be the same colour as I think it was just by accident that they're the same colour as a timber trunk, a wooden tree trunk.
So the next time you get it, it'll be a different colour, because it's we changed it so it dries like a light grey colour now, because people kept wanting to paint it and they didn't want it to dry like a kind of the tree colour. So we changed it, and it now dries to like a really sort of pale grey when it's completely cured.
Okay.
Yeah, so just take note, because it's going to be a bit different. It's still exactly the same. That's the only thing that's changed is the colour. But we did get a lot of people wanting to paint it different colours, and this takes paint very, very, very well. We've had people use, in Australia, someone just recently used Brusho pigment. I'm not sure if you know of that brand.
No.
I hadn't heard of it before, but you can use concrete stains on it. That takes it really beautifully, and just acrylic paints as well. So yeah, there's lots on our. We keep adding to our FAQ page, because people keep experimenting with things, and we keep adding. Yes, you can do this with it now, and here's what other people have used, and here's what we use, and so there's lots of different ways to make it look exactly how you want it to look. We used some. I don't know if you saw Brienne the Dragon being finished in Seattle, but she used some concrete stains there that she bought, and it looks like wood from afar. It looks exactly, and everybody at the Flower and Garden show who would come along and look at the dragon thought that it was made of wood, because she'd stained it that kind of woodeny colour. It was meant to be a kind of bronze colour. But to be honest, don't tell anyone, but I preferred her when she was completely grey. But yeah, everyone just assumed it was wood, and so they were just walking past going, oh, look at that wooden dragon, and we're like, no, it's only an inch thick and it's made of our product. And And no one believed us until we showed them the video of it inside, and they were like, oh, it's not.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you, like, I ask this question of everyone I interview because I'm just really interested to hear what people's opinions are on this, but do you believe that you could take anyone and turn them into a creative person?
No.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. You could, I suppose, if you teach children when they're young that they can be creative, but it's really quite strange because if you put it, I think the thinking. Adults have this mental block about drawing, and they say to you, "Oh, I can't draw. I can only draw stick figures." So they have this mental block that they can't draw, and it's come from their childhood where somebody said to them, "Oh, your drawings aren't any good," or
you're not creative. Yeah,
you're not creative. You can't draw. So they immediately. I have taught adults, and I used to do teaching on the left side of the brain, drawing the left side of the brain. And there's a lot of exercises you can do to become more creative. That was taught to adults who said those words, I cannot draw, I can only draw stick figures. It's because, from their childhood. So depends, you can mould a child, an adult. Yeah, you can teach them how to be more creative.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is if they have I'm very much, I used to do life coaching, and I'd get the same thing. People would come in, and essentially what it would boil down to is I'm just not good enough. I'm not a good enough mother. I'm not a good enough wife. I'm not a good enough worker. Whatever it was, it would boil down to that essence of I'm not good enough. And when you actually work with a person and you realize that actually they realize, oh, hey, I am actually good enough, then suddenly their whole life changes because they start to look at everything in a completely different way. So I guess if you took an adult and they were actually good at something and they did it in a class and you saw the change in them, then they're suddenly going to believe, maybe I could do something creative.
Yes.
So it's that mindset shift of I can't, and that's great because, if people are listening and they've, there's a lot of people who contact us and, they'd love to have a go, but they're a bit scared because, they've never created anything before, but they would love to see what this is all about because you don't need a kiln. And so it's, it's breaking down a lot of those barriers. And so you get asked a lot, well, what could I do? And that's when we realized that we'd love to create classes for people to show them that actually you too can be creative,
Yes.
And it's something that people are stifling in themselves. And it's such a shame because, I've just started sort of playing with Pal Tiya Premium myself. And it's really interesting because I don't think I know I'm creative with words because I'm a poet and a writer, but I never feel I'm good at creating, and I've tried my hand at it before, making things, and I just think, oh, what a big old mess. But actually, the more my mind is, I'm looking at people starting with our product, and I'm looking at people doing different things with different products, and I think, oh yeah, maybe I could do that now that, I'm kind of turning my head around and thinking I am actually creative, because if I'm creative with words and poetry, I can be creative with anything.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's that way you the things you tell yourself, I guess.
Yes,
it's
or
very important.
Sometimes I've been told to you when you're a child that you aren't much good, but sometimes parents can be quite negative. I always remember when my son was at kindergarten, and this mother used to come in, and there was a rubbish bin outside the kindergarten, and all of the children's paintings were they weren't even taken to the car. They were put in the bin outside.
No. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And I just thought, wow, like,
Jeez.
it just blew me away. Like, some parents just aren't good at nurturing the creative side of children. They just,
I think
stop it.
Yeah, I think a lot of adults, or a lot of parents tend to think that there's not much money in the arts as well, and so sometimes it's, well, we won't bother fostering that because they're never going to make money from it anyway. But actually, doing these interviews, I've realized that people do make very good money if they continue, creating and they get really good at what they're doing. They can absolutely make a living from it. So to anyone out there whose child is creating, just keep that little flame ignited. That's our message for today.
Yes, yeah. And creativity can take all kinds of forms,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So what do you think inspires you as an artist? Like, do you, is it music? Is it I can hear these beautiful birds outside in the background. Is it your environment? What kind of inspires you to create?
I love listening to music when I create.
Mm-hmm.
It transports me. And I love bird song, and in the mornings I get woken up. We have these birds called butcher birds. They're not particularly very social, but they sing outside on the next door house's aerial, and they mimic other birds, and they sing the most incredible songs. Like it just brings tears to my eyes when I hear them, and it's all different. All their songs are different. They're very unique Australian birds. They steal other birds' eggs. That's why they're called butcher birds. But they're very plain looking. I think sometimes the plainer the bird, the more beautiful the song. That's scary anyway.
Yes, that's actually something that I do very much miss about living in Australia, is the bird song, because like you, I would always be woken up with the most beautiful bird song. And I actually, one time I remember I recorded it, and then I heard the recording the other day. I stumbled across it when I was, cleaning out my computer, and it actually, it brought tears to my eyes, because I remembered living there and hearing that song and thinking, what such a unique sound that you just don't get where I am at the moment. So it's, it's just lovely. Yeah. So that beautiful. Inspires you.
Yes, that inspires me. But when the birds aren't singing, I'm listening to music. And I think when we sleep at night, we have these creative thoughts come in, and then I, develop ideas. Everything's organic with me. I develop an idea. At the moment, I'm working on. I want to use Pal Tiya as a mould, so I have to experiment a bit. I want to do planter moulds with faces on them. So I've got a mould maker. I'm just not sure how it will dry, because I don't want to stick to the mould. Yep. But watch out.
Yeah.
I'm quite determined to do.
I mean, it's interesting because it wasn't developed for that, but people are, like I say, just kind of trying lots of different things with it. So that's quite interesting. So your process is you get inspired, you have an idea. Do you draw it, or do you write it down, or how do you get that idea out of your head and into the world?
I have a little book that I keep near my bed, and I just do little drawings in it. And then, of course, I've got to put explanations next to it. Otherwise, I forget.
Yeah.
And that's really good. And then I flip through it and like, oh yeah, that's right. I thought about doing this, and then I'll try it, or or that didn't work. And it's quite good making mistakes too along the way, because you learn from those those mistakes. Whoops, the Pal Tiya is too thin. It's got a big, it will crack if you have it that thin.
Yeah.
But I found I make these big clay bases that the houses sit on, and I just sort of like pour the Pal Tiya, make it a little bit wetter than normal, and just pour it onto a big, say, cutting board, something flat, and then just let it dry. And then when it's nearly dry, put some feet on it. But so it's really good. I know you cover it and do those things with it that so it dries slowly, like you do, and then it doesn't crack. I realised, but it's it just seems to work in so many applications.
That's really cool. I love that you're experimenting with it and trying different things, because it's just so exciting for us to see, And I think it's starting to prove to people that there is so much you can do with it. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting, and we're so interested to see where it goes. So how did you learn to use it? Did you just watch videos, or have you got any tips basically for anyone who hasn't tried it, who's a bit kind of it's not clay and it's not this and it's not that? I'm kind of poking it with a jaggy stick at the moment. Do you have any?
Well, when I did the trees, I started off with the trees, and I had to experiment a lot because I didn't know what I was doing. I put a Dremel tool on it when it was too wet, and all the pieces are they fiberglass pieces?
No, there's no fiberglass in our product. No.
I don't know what it was. It came out.
Right.
And it's like having a furry tree. So, no, I think I have to wait until that dries a bit more, because it just looked terrible.
Right.
But the beauty of it was, because it turned out so horrible, I just put another layer of Pal Tiya over the top, and then let it dry. And because I'd done all that sculpting with the Dremel tool, it just looked fantastic.
Oh, interesting. Happy accidents.
Yes, a happy accident. And then I found I could stick wires in the top for the tree branches, and so they'd go through. And then I'd, when it was dry, I'd just put a little bit of glue in to hold them. So I'd use a Loctite or another glue that sets quickly, and set the branches in there, and then put on my leaves over the top of those branches. I've used pieces of wood at the top of the trees, but that wasn't so successful because sometimes the wood would snap.
Right.
And then, so probably wasn't using the right type of wood. So, and I really like how on one of the houses I've got there, it's got little tiny stones all over the front of it.
Yes.
Pal Tiya underneath, and then all these tiny little pebbles. And I just thought, you could just put anything on this. You could put jewels and just go, you put whatever you wanted on it and it would adhere to it. And you didn't have to put it into a kiln.
No.
of the pieces have got because you can't work in miniature on it, some of the door frames have got like a oven dried clay around the colourful one that you can get. I won't mention brands. Across the outside of the door to make the frame of the door, and around the windows. Same with the windows. Even if some of the windows were metal, they were found jewellery objects. They've been revamped as well, and they were brass. So, but that was all right.
Just people just should kind of experiment and maybe watch some videos and just kind of try their own thing.
Yes, I did actually watch a video before I started. I thought, wearing gloves, I don't know about that.
It's always the question we get, why do I need to wear gloves? And I'm like, well, it's got cement in it and it would dry the beep out of your hands.
Yeah. Well, normal clay does too. You're meant to, it really...
Oh, does it?
Really.
I've never used normal clay before, so I would not know.
Yeah. I even discovered that you could add on even when it was dry. Like I did something and I thought, the feet need to be longer. So you put longer feet over the top of the other one, so I made it higher because I had to make that was on at the underneath the base, and it worked. I didn't have to glue or anything them on, and it just went over the top of the other Pal Tiya.
Yeah, as long as you keep the surface keyed, you can keep adding weeks, months, even a year later if you wanted.
Wow.
It will just laminate right back on as long as you've kept that bite for it to go back into.
Yeah, so real advantages of using it.
Yeah. So what do you see the future for yourself as? I mean, obviously your dad is 93 and he's still creating, so I guess you've still got plenty of time.
Yes, I've got lots of time left.
Yeah. Do you think you would ever go bigger now that you can? Or you like your miniature?
Yes, the planters are going to be actually life.
Oh, really?
Size.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. So the heads will be life-size heads. So
wow.
I've also got some ideas that I've been picking up along the way for fountains for the garden, but quirky stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's because of the way that you can add on. So I can do something quite quirky and out there, and I don't have to. If I don't like it, I can just keep on adding on until I do. So that's why I really like working with it.
Yeah.
It's not limiting like clay. It's just not limiting.
Yeah, I mean it has its limits, and some people can't get over the glove thing, and they're like, I just couldn't work with gloves, and that's that's a limit for some people. But I guess when you're talking someone who we get contacted by a lot of professional artists like sculptors who to them wearing gloves is nothing because before they were wearing hazmat suits in the bronze foundries and stuff. So they're like, oh, that's nothing, a pair of surgical gloves. But for other people, that's a barrier. So it's just depending where you are on your artistic journey, I guess. Because you open your packet and it does have warnings on it because it isn't you're not supposed to breathe it in or anything like that, as you wouldn't do anything with those types of products, but some people that turns some people off because it's not Play-Doh, right?
It's not Play-Doh. I love it.
Yeah. So
I always wear a mask. My husband's a health and safety. He was not now. And he would just be horrified if he saw me mixing that with nothing on my face. And also my sister, who's a full-time artist, she has a lung problem now. I think worked for so many years with oils in an enclosed room.
Yeah.
Especially Melbourne with the heaters on and now she's got lung problems. I just think,
dear.
no, I am going to wear a mask. Funny because I sort of work at the other end of the scale.
Yes.
But it works for me, you know, those miniatures. Because the houses are only the size of a children's shoebox. So they're tiny, you know, like they're only little. And the trees are only, you know, like 12 centimetres high. But it works. It's, you know, miniatures.
And what other mediums do you work in at the moment? Are you working in, like, you used to work in clay, obviously?
Yep, I work... the dolls are made from a different kind of a clay. The heads are, and they're very fine. And so my sister and I sew clothes for those world dolls. And the other thing that I do is I do mandalas with ink.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, with ink on blackboards and reverse black ink on whiteboards. So I love doing those, and they all start off with just a circle in the middle and go out from there. But I don't sell them; they're just for me. Yeah, just like working on things. Yeah.
So would you be able to send us a couple of pictures of those if they're not on your shop so we can show people what you're talking about?
Yes, I could do that.
That would be great. And tell everyone what your Etsy store is, just in case they aren't, you know, they don't have access to the show notes or whatever, but they will. But what's your Etsy store called, or is it just your name?
No, it's called Fairy Fountain Minis.
Fairy Fountain Minis on Etsy.
MINIS on Etsy.com. Yes. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Well, we will definitely link to that. And thank you for, I know you've got to get off, but thank you for taking the time to talk with us today and telling us about your interesting journey and the future of what you're creating. So that's really exciting.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing Pal Tiya into my life. I love it.
Oh, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. It's just great to see what you're doing with it. I'm loving it. We're loving it.
You.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day. Great evening.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our podcast today. Hey, I have a favour to ask, and it won't take very long. Would you be so kind as to go and leave a review on iTunes? This helps more people find out about our podcast, and as we grow and evolve, we love more listeners like you. Thanks so much. Until the next time.
If you want to know more about Pal Tiya and our amazing product, Pal Tiya Premium, then visit www.paltiya.com and join our international fan base.